That's not always the case.
Mm-hmm.
The one, like Gallatin County said they had, out of their 148, they took 2 through the whole compliance process.
Okay. And I understand there's philosophical problems with herbicides for some people and everything like that. I guess part of the education process that I can think of is, well, prove to me there's a more effective means, and we'll accept that. Is that basically the stance that's happened so far?
The easiest way for them to exit noncompliance is to write a management plan. And that management plan then comes to you guys for review.
Okay.
So that's how they exit noncompliance, is they write a management plan and follow it.
Okay.
If they choose not to do that, and then we, as the board, execute a management plan on their behalf.
Which can be another 10 days or whatever.
Yep.
Okay.
And so the timeline that most counties say is it takes 2 months from receipt of complaint to treatment on ground if you have to go through the whole procedure.
Okay.
So
And
it is
then
not
and then it's a county problem
So
for some
then-
of these weeds, like ventonata or whatever.
Yes.
It's yeah. Okay. All right. Well. Okay.
So it is not timely.
No. Okay.
So does the management plan allow then the next beginning of the next year's growing season? Because that's really, a lot of these are gonna get away. It's more of getting it early next year.
So once they enter the management plan, that plan is in effect for, we can say 3 years.
Okay.
And then they have to follow that plan, providing us with receipt for 3 years that they have treated it. So that condition is ours to make. But yeah, then it catches that up for that following spring.
I think you could take both approaches, really. You can send a letter so that your clock starts. But try to reach out and contact that individual before they'd ever received the letter. I did that a lot with past due loans at the bank. There were letters that we had to send, but working in conjunction with both the legal process and the educational, so to speak, in reaching out with people, I think 2 people can be very effective. And in that communication, you let them know that that letter was sent, and that's part of the process. So expect it, but we want to work with you to correct this, rather than take it clear through the legal process.
Yeah, if we can avoid getting him involved, we're better off if we, sorry to say that, but, I mean, because, well, then we're not stepping on toes and all that kind of stuff. And the one thing we do have to remember when we do all this, a lot of our problem people are not county-based. They're out-of-state landowners or out-of-county landowners that don't care. Or don't see their property but once during hunting season. And there's no weeds. They're all dead. So we got to think of that one too when we get into that. That was kind of a problem there.
And to be clear, our jurisdiction does not include Forest Service ground.
I wish it did.
Well, I mean,
It is.
fence lines are to the Forest Service, and some of those areas are bad. So
Yeah, I mean,
there's sinkholes, yeah.
we
So
can put Forest
okay.
Service in non-compliance today. I totally understand,
Okay.
and I wish we could do something about it, but we can't. We don't get to dictate on the state and federal.
No, so we could
land.
put, like, the rail link, or Montana Rail, in noncompliance. If they had
Yeah.
big patches of weeds, we could see noncompliance on them, because they're a private entity. But, yeah.
And I didn't understand that law good enough if someone has the state lease, can we send a letter and say, hey, you got a problem?
I don't know. I'd have to talk to the state people about that, because I know that they put that back on the land, the leasee, to manage. but it's still state land.
Yeah, and that's why I'm asking.
So we'd have to
That
check.
way,
Mhm.
you know, we might not be able to take legal action, but hey, you know, we know you have a problem.
Yeah.
It's part of their lease too.
Yeah, so it's in their lease agreement, so if they're not following through with it, that's,
Okay, so we have to take it to the state.
mhm.
Okay. That's just clarification. I mean, so, I guess,
So how about, what did you guys like or not like about the couple of other county plans? Anybody, something grab you that you really like?
I found that the Flathead County one, we were just talking about a few moments ago, the chart that they have for it really seemed to me to be really clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of folks, especially doing the kind of work we do, a series of papers and graphs and
Mm-hmm.
this kind of thing works. But this, I think, this to me was really, really clear. And I think
Yep.
would be helpful to consider something like that for the people that aren't really aware of the processes here.
so, all right, let's get some order to this thing here, I guess. Because I agree with you, Peter, I like, yeah, things better. So, I'm looking at Carbon County's weed district, notice of weed, noxious weed request for inspection.
Mm-hmm.
This letter here I like
Okay.
to be sent out
Oh, yeah.
as kind of the first, hey, you got a problem, da-da-da-da. I like, theirs a little bit better than, I don't think Flathead, did Flathead send that?
Flathead did not include one.
Okay. That I kind of like, that, hey, you got a problem. Just how it's kind of, it gives kind of how, what's going to happen, kind of thing. As to say, hey, not just send a letter, you're not in compliance.
Mhm.
Well, what am I not in compliance of? Da, 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 da. This kind of went through and gave them a start. In that, this would kind of be our first letter to send to them. What are you guys thinking?
That's a good point.
You know, it's kind of quick, easy.
Having a generic form letter that where you can plug in and not have to draft,
Yeah,
and that's
'cause
approved.
this will probably be sent out quite a bit. I got a feeling.
Yeah.
You know, and you get this in the mail, you're gonna be like, okay, I got a problem, what do I need to do?
Mhm.
Call Jessica. That was the only thing I didn't see on here, and I don't know if there was another page that I was missing, no. No.
So I didn't include their policy because it was just strict code. It was verbatim code for Kevin.
Okay.
So I just included their letters because I liked them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I do too. The one thing I probably say to add is to, this letter would be your name, number, da,
Mhm.
da, da.
Yep.
With that, and even maybe throwing a flow chart in.
Yes.
Kinda like, Flathead counties,
Yeah.
and say, hey, if you don't kind of
Because-
get going on this,
They include the flow chart in their second notice, but we could throw that on the first notice.
that's what I'm saying, you know, hey, there is some repercussions if you don't
Mhm.
take this to,
And you're here sticker
Yeah.
for where
Yeah.
they're at in the process.
where's your sign?
Yeah.
Yeah. Peter.
Again, the flow chart to me isn't as clear
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, but
as the
No,
other.
no, use,
use
Yeah.
Flathead.
Flatheads,
Yeah,
yeah,
use
flatheads
flathead.
is,
And
yeah.
the other
But put
thing
that-
is that this letter, the first letter, to me is more informational and less confrontational. I think we, like the good guy and the bad guy, I think that we'll get more compliance, more willingness to cooperate.
Yeah, and that's kind of where this would be a good first letter,
Yeah,
you know, give them,
a lot of people have no idea. When I moved back into Montana, this noxious weed thing, it was new for me. I knew what noxious weeds were, but the program here with the effectiveness is incredible.
one other thing, just because we need to check we need to add out the backpack sprayer.
Yeah, we'll put
all
that-
those, fix those.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. So no, what the next board meeting, official board meeting, I'll present you guys with a packet of all of these documents corrected. And
Okay.
then
Okay.
send it to you before that, you can look at them, and then we can approve the non-compliance as a package
And be done with it.
and be done with it, unless there's a major issue.
Yeah. So, I do like that. We'll need to check those though, because we have different options and a few other options.
We'll just put our rental prices in there,
Yeah.
and then our own list of
What we
commercial
have.
applicators and,
Yeah. And then, so that's the first letter we'll send.
I have a question about this for non-residents. Does this work, and do we have an email address for non-residents to get it quicker? Because sometimes
so we have to send it certified.
okay,
So if we have a phone number, we'll call them. That'll be our first step, is they'll get this and a phone call.
okay,
If they don't have an agent or a landowner, we also can contact the state to find their state agent.
or land manager?
Yeah.
You mean, okay, all right, okay,
So but there is nothing to make it faster for out-of-state landowners.
okay, good, thank you.
Except for phone call.
And the code had, it stated a lot of detail that needed to be in that first
Yes.
Yeah.
contact, and
And
and I think that's where the template
yeah.
becomes a critical piece.
And I do believe that all that stuff will be covered under the Montana code on top. Do we want to send the code on the first letter too?
Well, there were just a lot of details that the code
Required.
dictated that,
Mhm.
or required that be specifically identified in that letter. The weeds legal description, addresses, time frame, all of that. There was a whole list in
Yeah.
that section 2131 that was indicated that needed to be in that letter.
So, okay.
Yep. And so the only thing that isn't on this form is actually the legal description, so we could just throw a spot on there for legal description.
Yeah.
I don't know if the out-of-county stuff was in your email, but I missed it. So I'm going blind a little bit on the,
Yeah, no,
on the
it's all,
out-of-county documents, so.
oh, this is everything that's.
So,
When is our next meeting gonna be? Is it next month or is it gonna be?
March 10th.
okay. Yeah.
March 10th?
Okay. So I have a deputy county attorney that's starting on March 15th, so
Oh, okay.
she'll be working on stuff like this, so I was gonna, you'll be here at some point, so.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll bring her to a meeting and everything,
perfect.
so.
Yeah.
Well, you said the second Tuesday of the month, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are you here
At 7 o'clock.
You do every month?
We try to. Last year kind of really screwed us
Okay.
up. I think we only had like 2 meetings last year.
No, we had a little more than that, but
3?
last year was rough.
Yeah. And, yeah. But we try to, because with here soon we'll start getting bombarded by subdivision plans
Mhm.
and spray updates and yeah, all that kind of stuff.
So, yeah. Try to knock this out early.
So, yeah.
So then does the second letter from Carbon County also, this is the little more, if you guys didn't do anything, we're mad now.
It strikes me that lays it out pretty clearly, but again, even more so if it had the different type of flow chart.
Mhm.
Just as personal thought.
You're still here in the box?
Yeah, right.
We can do that too.
Yeah.
Yes, and then
Okay.
move them down, you
Yeah.
elapsed this, we're now here.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Kind of make it irritating. If we want to send a letter every day, we can send a letter every day to their clients. No, until they go to court. It's up our hands. I'm okay with sending this letter and a flow chart saying, hey, you're still here, you know, we're still here. We're gonna get nasty. Totally okay with it. Hopefully it never reaches this point, but there'll be somebody.
Oh, you bet.
So that kind of outlines our letter, our procedure for send a letter, reach out by phone, send out modified carbons forms to reflect our plans. When we receive a complaint, do we want them to come in and make the complaint to me directly so that we can explain to them that A, it is public record, and B, they also have to be in compliance with the noxious weed policy to make a complaint, or it'll come back to them.
We better,
We can make that a requirement, is that the complaint must be made in person.
if we do that,
We have to make an appointment, schedule an
have
appointment.
to, yeah, have to schedule everything.
Because I don't want somebody to come in and say, my neighbor has knapweed, and then I go out to look at the neighbors, and they are also covered with
Yeah,
Dalmatian toad bugs.
getting
Into a-
neighbor, they kind of going
Yeah.
on there. Yeah, I mean, otherwise, we're just, I mean, then it's gonna be neighbor against neighbor,
Mhm.
and it'll start all over again. We'll be giving him a lot of business.
If they have to come in person, it eliminates a lot of what you're worried about, the neighbor versus neighbor and the non-justified complaint. If you
Yeah,
have to
that's-
physically come in and sign something in front of somebody, it's more likely to be a legitimate complaint.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And the problem you're gonna get is farmers are really busy and they're like,
Mm.
you want me to drive all the way to town to tell you that?
But if they say, hey, I can't make it to town, can you come see me? Well, then that's in person, so I can
Mm.
make an appointment to come out there, and maybe that rolls into 2 steps in one. So I
Yeah.
can come out and see, you know, the nature of the complaint as well,
Yeah, it might be better to say
in person.
in person, not say you have to.
Not in office, but in
In
person.
person, yeah. Because, yeah, it'd probably be better. Yeah.
So, making the language friendlier, any of these speak to you guys better than another one? Are there things that you want to take, like Flathead counties, where they break it into 2 landowner sizes? Any of that stuff, or, you know, Gallup County's education approach, any of those?
Part of an education approach, the actual, that list of the 1A and 1B and
Mhm.
everything like that, how often do landowners get a copy of that when they pay their taxes?
They don't. So,
Okay.
the other thing that is supposed to happen with every sale of property is the buyer is supposed to be provided by the seller a list of noxious weeds on the property. And that doesn't happen statewide. One of the things I'm working on with some of the title companies is putting together a packet to hand to landowners saying, here are noxious weeds, here's the law. But
Mhm.
I think when we send out this first letter, include one of the weed books.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh,
Excellent idea.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just wondering if it could, because I mean, this list changes,
yes.
and we may have some things that need to be on this list that we don't even know about next year.
Mhm.
I'm just saying in terms of education for all landowners is to understand that I bet there's a lot of landowners that have no idea that there's a noxious weed act.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And they have to comply to something.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering if that's something that can be available to them.
So, separate of this document, long-term goals for my department is to start having education events spread out throughout the county. So, one of the things I want to do is have like a weed education, and when you're part of the mosquito district, how the mosquito trap works. Have those staged, throughout the years. We can walk through the field and say, hey, this is a noxious weed. And we can do that in-person education.
Yeah, which is fantastic, but I'm concerned about the non-residents.
Yes,
who
and
will
so
be here.
those, my hope is that when we do title sales, that we'll have that document to be handed out with them.
Okay.
And I think, each realtor should have books to hand out when they're doing sales, so that they know what the weeds are and what the code is. But we're not there quite yet.
Okay.
That book to me was the greatest education that I had. It's invaluable. I've got a bunch of them that you gave me. I've handed a number of them out. And I'm just kind of wondering if we could have a procedure by agreement with the title companies, whoever, that a copy of that book and a copy of
Mhm.
this goes out as a standard part.
Yeah, and so they asked me to make it small. So they were thinking, maybe a book and a brochure, so that they're
Right.
not. So I was looking at modifying the Why Should We Care brochure booklet. It's a little bit bigger document, and pulling out why it matters to
Mhm.
them.
Oh, yeah, especially for out-of-staters.
Yep. And then it'd be like a trifold brochure, and then that book.
Yeah, if we can approach it from the educational primarily, with the enforcement as a backup, I think it's going to be a lot more productive.
And, we won't catch all of the landowners out of state.
No.
We could put together like a listserv and pull out landowners that are absentee with acreages that border, and send them direct mailings, so to speak. But, that would be a project for later this year.
I can see how if you go through the title companies, how ensuring that they have all the brochures on hand all the time could become very onerous.
Yeah.
But if you did a trifold that has the why this matters and a web link in there to where you could go to that web page, that way the county's not continuing to pay for publication on multiple sources time and time and time again, but you're still giving the information out. That way the landowner can't say, hey, I didn't know, or you didn't give it to me. They have a simple one page or trifold why it matters. This is where you get the information, because when you purchase property, the onus is on you to be in compliance. But I would caution against trying to do too much to give to that, because that would become a full-time job, trying to make sure every title company out there has all that big packet of information.
And I'm sure there are title companies that mainly, there's probably 5 that handle business in Broadwater County. And so, if we miss one who happens to do an odd one, that's probably not a big, as, hitting those 5 that serve Broadwater.
Be the exception, not the rule.
Yeah. All right, so the complaint will be made in person, by appointment. It will be public record. So when I get a complaint, clerk and recorder will get a form, I'll keep a form, and then I'll start the letter form. Does it need to come to the board when I receive a complaint before I send the letter?
It's up to the board. I think the board could probably pass something delegating you to do it, because number one, you gotta do it quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
We kind of hit on this a little bit earlier. Since we are a advisory board, it really, should it even come from us, or does it need to say, have the commissioners' names on it and not ours?
I mean, when you do the hearings, it's gonna come to the weed board first, right? And if they don't like it, they can appeal to the county commission, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, that's the
So
procedure.
I think it could come from the weed board first.
And I think the code is written, if I understood the code right, it's written
Well,
that
see,
way as well.
Yeah, and some counties don't have that, and whereas used to be,
Right.
some counties don't have a weed board, they just do it with the commissioners. And that's why
Okay.
I'm wondering if that was possibly with the commissioners, because they're gonna have more weight than us.
Well, and that's where the first appeal goes, is to the commissioners too, with the way the process is
Yeah, so
outlined
if
by
we
the state.
deny their management plan, then that goes to the commission for appeal.
Okay.
But it's just like our subdivision plans, where,
Okay.
so do you guys want me to start the letter process upon receipt of a complaint, or do you want it to come to you first?
For time wise, and this is my opinion, we can't make any decisions tonight. Really just have her start it and let us know.
That makes sense to me.
You know, send us an email, we got Joe Smith and non-compliance, we'll talk about it at the next meeting.
Yep.
Through email or something.
Yep.
She's dealing with it every day, she's a resident expert.
Yeah, I mean, we're not, unless it's a neighbor, we're not gonna know.
My next question will be, do we want to accept complaints from board members? Or do we want to make it public only? Some counties do both, some counties only let public submit them. My only concern is that it could get you guys into hot water with that neighbor thing.
And is there five board members? There's 5 members of the board?
Mm.
So you can make a policy that if a board member submits a complaint, then that board member would recuse himself if it ever goes to a hearing on that.
I'm okay with that, I mean,
It's just whatever you guys are comfortable with doing.
yeah,
We avoid it from becoming a conflict of interest if they recuse themselves from
Yeah.
any sort of vote.
because.
Keeps personalities and the personal aspect out of it.
Yeah. Well, and we're all kind of spread out through the county, so.
Yep.
Most of us are spread out pretty good that say, Todd, you're from the Crow Creek. I mean, if somebody out there, good chances, I'm not gonna know who it is, you know? So it will actually be probably a blind thing. You know, Gord, you're all over the county, so that'll mean. You might know, you know, I mean, or down by Peter, I mean, we won't know them, in all honesty. So it's probably better that if they'd have to remove themselves. I agree with that.
And I don't think it'd be a bad idea if a board member was around just for that initial appointment, if
Mhm.
somebody happened to be available to,
Yeah, kind of be another set of eyes.
go be another set of eyes in that discussion, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea, and they can be the witness to the
Mm-hmm.
whole system starting correctly.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's a good idea.
You could also wait to make the complaint until the board meets and then formally announce that you're going to, that, you know, there is a property that you plan on, you know, making a non-compliance complaint, and from that point, you're recusing yourself from any further discussion on it without naming anything at that
Yeah.
point. So you formally stepped out of the process from the meeting, and then at that point, you kind of become a private citizen moving forward on it.
Yeah, I mean,
At most, it's gonna extend the complaint time by, you know, 29 days at the longest if you decide to do it. Or if you find out the day after your board meeting, the longest it'll be before you can meet at another board is, you know, your month.
well, couldn't they still meet at the board, just they couldn't be part of the non-compliance act?
Well, so all he's saying is that if a board member wants to file a complaint, then they try to act.
But I mean, they could be here for the business and all that.
Yeah, so they're
They
just
couldn't
stepping
be a
out at
voting
that.
member on,
That
or
point, yeah,
any
yeah.
portion of the discussion, but that way, on public record, you've stepped out of the process saying that I plan on, as a private citizen, making a complaint. So that way, from day one, before the complaint's even made, you've basically said that.
Are you losing too much time?
Well, the nine,
So we're just worried about board safety, and I think either way would be fine. I think faster would be if they filed a complaint, and then at the next board meeting, they say complaint number, say, 7 was filed. I'm recusing myself from that complaint.
yeah.
I understand. Thank you.
That's what I would say.
So question, can you do inspections? Can board members do inspections too? Is there a reason why they
So
couldn't?
it's been the job of the county employee to do the inspections.
Uh-huh.
That's how all the other counties do this, because I'm an employee of the county.
Yeah,
I think that they can accompany me as a witness, but I don't think that they can do the inspection.
okay.
Because I know they can't do our subdivision inspections. They can be part of it, but they're not the inspector. Yes?
Yeah, we've never had anybody do that, any of
Yeah.
that part of it, because we were, and it was never in our bylaws, but we never did that. It was just kind of an unwritten law that that's whoever's the
Week or two.
weed coordinator was going to do that part of it for safety reasons for the board, just so we have nothing to do with any of them.
Mhm.
You know, and that way if I have a subdivision come up, I can't say, well, my line's clean.
Sure.
Yeah.
It would. Yeah, and she goes out and looks at it and it's just nappy. That would, it was always her.
Well, it allows the
Scott.
board to remain advisory only at that point.
Yeah.
Jessica, question, have you ever been threatened or felt uncomfortable when you've gone out?
No,
Good. Good.
Were you here when the?
I was not.
No,
No.
that was part of, that was some of the situation too, so that's, it just got bad. It's the only way to put it, it was just bad.
Maybe if Jessica ever was in a situation where she felt uncomfortable, it would make sense for her to call upon one of us,
Or
just
two,
to be
whatever.
there, just as a
She can call
witness.
me
just-
at any point in time,
And that-
and I can go
yeah.
along with her.
Well, they had the deputy sheriff out at this one, like.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, really?
I-
Oh, it got nasty then. huh?
It was not pretty. That's why the S show is used on that one. So, I guess how far does that take us along in your game plan for this?
So the only other thing I really want to nail down is how you guys want your more user-friendly language to go. So if you guys can guide me on which of these plans appeals to you or not, that's a good place to start.
You mean of the utility plans?
Yeah, so out of these ones that have the compliance plan and strategy, which one do you like, which one do you like?
I'll just repeat that I like the diagram one on Saugus
Mhm.
County. It strikes me as quite user-friendly. Maybe it's
So-
just that I'm a kid and I like pictures.
So the compliance plan and strategy for Flathead, it breaks it out into what they want to do and then the law. Do you guys like that? Where,
Yeah, I had some notes on that one, which the October part, this is the invasive plant, but then maybe this one was,
oh, okay, yeah, so if it's set in October,
yeah,
you're not expecting them to spray in October, you expect them to spray May and June.
May and June, which, that was just my kind of thing, but, I mean, we're.
There's a lot of weeds that are most effectively killed in October.
Okay. Well, and that I
And
have.
so we could just
underlined.
strike that and just make it to, you know,
Yeah.
they write us a management plan, we outline what weeds they have, and then we say, this is more effective to treat in the fall
Yeah.
as part of their plan. We don't have to include that language in this part.
Yeah, and we can Indian summer, I mean, we can have shoots of green coming up in October easy, so you can spray it. I'm fine with that. That's why it's in red.
Yeah.
I think that was there.
Okay. So what I'll do is when I get home, what I'll do is type up kind of all of our ideas, send it out to you guys, and you guys can edit and make suggestions before the next meeting, and then I'll try to have something more formal to present at the next meeting.
Just as a point of clarification here, is not Palmer amaranth a noxious weed now too?
It isn't, to my knowledge. They were talking about it, and they chose not to list it.
So it is under the USDA
Yes.
noxious weed seed list. It is a
Oh.
noxious weed, and it's a monster.
So what we can do is that, separate of this, our weed plan does need to be revised again this year. We're due for that. And so that's where we can add Palmer amaranth
Yeah.
Okay,
And
at that time,
Yeah.
regardless of what the state does.
okay.
That should be on our
Good.
next meeting. That's
Okay.
I had highway contract at our next meeting.
And what's that weed called?
Palmer amaranth. But we can put it on there. I mean, we can revise our weed list if we want.
It's usually a pretty fast system there.
Because we overhauled the whole thing, so it shouldn't take much.
No, it should just be adding weeds.
And so we do have to post it and have a 30-day comment period if we add weeds.
Really?
Yes.
Did we do that last time?
Yes.
Any other comments? So that was, okay, so let's get that going for.
Okay.
Guess we won't take March.
Yep.
Any other part of these things that? Other plans that somebody liked or wanted added in?
I did have one question, and maybe you've answered it. So if the landowner has multiple parcels that are in non-compliance, but it's same landowner, are you treating that as one complaint?
No.
Or is it multiple complaints on multiple parcels?
Each parcel is separately
So
identifiable.
you can track each separately?
Yes, has to be complained on individually.
I think that was.
It
Yep.
is, yeah.
I really like the fact that you got public record written right on both of these. That really, that
So do
brings
either of these
immediate
speak
attention.
to you more than the other? This was just what I mocked up from two different ones.
But,
Oh, these forms, these initial complaint
Oh.
forms.
I thought they were pretty good.
Yeah.
I think the listing of the 39 different weeds is an opportunity for education as well.
And so that includes our current county weeds. I did not include water weeds on this list because we can't act on them.
Yeah. I'm okay with that. Everybody else?
I like that one better personally.
Gordon, what I'll do is I'll check with Jasmine. I think that they presented Palmer amaranth this year, but they decided not to list it as a state listed weed. But I can't find
Okay.
where I think she just told me that. I don't think I have it.
I do, like I say, it's under the Weed Seed
Yes.
Act, it is, but I don't,
Yeah.
it certainly wasn't on the last one that I looked at on
Yep.
the 1A and 1B and all that.
Mhm.
So, yeah, okay.
We can add it as a
Yep, so we can add it as a
Okay.
county.
All right.
county. Our county list is pretty good.
Yeah. All right, so anything else from these that speaks to you guys? Do you want to break it out for landowners and expectations or not?
No. I would kind of like to see that in there a little bit. You know, hey, you gotta do something.
Mhm,
You know, you can write us a management plan, but if you still don't follow the management plan.
mhm. So, you know, we have a 1,000-acre ranch, expecting complete control over that 1,000-acre ranch is hard. But if you say, hey, control your buffers and break it into sections, that's an obtainable process.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can remove the biological option from the sheet, and then if they ask about biologicals, then approach it. That's something you want to see.
Might not be bad because bugs could be hard to get a hold of at certain
Mhm.
times of the year. Don't want them relying on that. Yeah, it works great. We can get them, but if we can't get them, we have it in there saying, hey, we can get them.
Yeah.
We can't get them, then it's bad on us. So if they want to look into it and come to us and ask for help with biological,
Mhm.
but let's not give that as an option right
Yep.
away. And who knows, we might find a place we can do some bug collecting and whatnot.
Mhm.
You have a different opinion, say. I
No,
mean,
I think the biological business is a racket, and there's a lot of snake oil products out there, and I don't know if we can wait for some of those snake
Well,
oil
and
products
yeah,
to work,
They
so.
take longer.
So I think
Yep.
one of the things, if we get a plan that wants to rely heavily on biologics, is that they must implement a buffer zone where they border other properties. They must spray
Okay,
that or mow that or do
Yeah.
something else for where they border.
okay.
And that's a requirement we can make, or you can make.
I'm okay with that, because, I mean, on a biological control, I don't remember what they say, but it's not the first year, not even,
No.
it's like 5
Yeah.
years?
It's 5 years.
Okay,
So we want them to control those margins.
way faster.
Yep.
Is there anyone that wants to do goats or anything like that for certain weeds as their management plan?
We haven't had anybody present that.
Yeah. I don't even know, I don't know anybody in the county that has the right type of goats that are feeding and doing. Is there anybody even in Gallatin or?
I've seen it used in, I think it was Gallatin County.
Okay.
But it may well have been on public land that they were using it, but I have seen it at least attempted.
And my recommendation for goats would be, you know, they're more applicable in areas that are harder for us to reach with a sprayer.
Yeah.
That's where they're more useful.
But, I mean, if you're small,
Yeah.
you're gonna have opportunity to go get goats.
Yeah, and
do
they're-
that.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to hire somebody, and I don't know,
I mean, it's out there, but
is there
these,
people that have them now, they could put them in, I don't know.
but the people who are good at it with the right kind of goats already have their contracts and they go yearly to these places.
Yeah.
And I think the onus is on the landowner at that point if they plan to put that in there.
And then they have to show us
Management
how they're going
plan.
to be effective with that.
Okay. Yeah, their management plan can be their management plan, but they still gotta do it.
Mhm.
Yeah, they need to implement
Yeah. They wanna go hand pull, they can go hand pull, they just gotta do it.
The other thing I thought of would be good is, so Flathead has a form to fill out. So if they fill out this invasive plant form and submit it to the board, and it passes board, then they're considered in compliance. My thought would be modify our subdivision management plan to meet that need. So that we have a preset form. So if we have a landowner, we get a complaint on them, we give them this management form, say, if you provide this to us, and it has all the things we're looking for,
Oh, okay.
and then they become in compliance, and then it's the same form, the information we want. And so my suggestion would be to modify our subdivision plan to meet that need.
Yeah, we kind of like the subdivision plan. We could modify, that wouldn't be hard to modify
No.
for non-compliance.
Yeah, we just remove some of the
Plan.
stuff that's regarding,
Yeah, non-compliance.
and then if somebody says, hey, with outside of the compliance thing, I want to do a management plan for my property. This is the form you give up for that too, and then it helps them outline that. And they don't still have to present it to the board, but they have a tool on file with us, so if somebody says, hey, you're not patrolling the weeds, they can say, actually, I have a plan on file.
Yeah.
That's,
It actually might be a safe kind of thing for the board too. Do we have so much legal action taken against this?
There was that form out there, that's kind of proactive though,
Mhm.
where
Yeah.
people can use that to
Yep.
their benefit.
And so that's something else we can include, you know, if we get a complaint, in our first letter, we can include that form, giving them that opportunity to see what they need to do. And gives them one step closer to getting in compliance.
One do, yeah. Shine it on the first letter,
Mhm.
with the flow chart. The first letter is getting to be a first packet.
Well, yeah,
But it's good. They'll know it. One thing I did like about Lincoln County plan is they put in the transport part.
The what?
Transport of hay
Oh,
and
mm,
any of that. If we have somebody in non-compliance, do we want to add something like that in, like, hey, you can't? And I know I'm gonna maybe go down a well that's gonna turn it horrible, I'll be the first to admit that. But do we want
well,
something like
well,
that?
that's, if we find a new invasive or find a really bad patch and they bailed it all on hay. So that actually happened to me in Sanders County. I worked on the Rush Skeleton Weed Task Force. And they baled an entire field of Rush Skeleton Weed and sold it. And so
So we,
having that,
yeah,
yeah,
and we should have something in there for that you can't. I don't know how to word it even, but you can't, this is often, it probably won't be, we won't use this, I'm sure, but you can't sell hay, you can't move hay, you can't feed cows, can't move cows until you're in compliance. I know we can't make that stick, we can't make that work. How do we clean it up and make it work?
What's enforceable?
I'd have to do research and see if this is ever, it's probably happened before in Montana. I think I'd have to research on it, but, I mean, think about that, that could be a big money issue if
Yeah.
of course, if it's a big hay producer, they're gonna be doing their best to keep the weeds down, because that's the value of their hay. I mean, their customers aren't gonna be happy about buying weeds.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's gonna be your big hay
It's gonna
producer,
be
sort of.
small.
It's gonna be my size. You know, hey, I got an infestation here, we'll mow it, we'll bale it and feed it to our cows. You know, then the seed goes through the cow, they go over
Mhm.
here, they poop here, and now I'm on the neighbors, it's not my problem, but I rented it from the neighbors.
so on your Forest Service leases, is there a feed out period before you put your cows on the Forest Service? Or you have to feed them weed-free hay for 2 weeks?
No,
Okay,
not that, if there is, no one follows it,
okay,
because it's, we don't worry about going that way, we worry
Yeah.
about coming this way. I mean, it's,
so I mean, it's not coming at that end.
no.
This opens up the screenings discussion too, which
Yeah,
becomes really big, so.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what, I knew I was gonna open a can of worms when I said this, but do we want something in there saying, hey, if you're in non-compliance, you can't do this? Because it would be,
Maybe we should say
but
in the
you know what, it
non-compliance
falls under
plan.
statute, because you're not allowed to let a seed propagate, or let a noxious weed go to seed. It would theoretically be covered under statute.
I think that's probably correct. I would need to double check that and see if that's ever.
It's in other counties' verbiage already, that reaching out to them, figuring out what
I
they,
just couldn't find it.
what traps
Nathan.
they ran with it and what verbiage they have.
Lincoln County, that's.
Lincoln County, okay,
Noxious weed seed-free forage for leaf.
Okay.
Agricultural products, transport of plant material.
so that's actually part of their county plan, that's not part of their non-compliance plan.
Well, it got me thinking though.
Yeah, no, and it's a good thought.
I mean, because I know it's gonna be a wormhole, but if you're in a non-compliance,
You shouldn't be able to sell hay.
I mean, I know there'd be a lot of mad ranchers saying, I can't, what do you mean I can't feed this hay?
But that's only if they're in non-compliance.
That's true,
I mean-
but you throw somebody in non-compliance, they're not gonna be happy anyways if you
Mhm.
can't feed it to their cows. You know, and if they compost, like, I know we compost, I mean, we don't have this weed problem because of that. So we have to order the milk for 3 years. I mean, it's a longer process.
What about in the plan that they are to come forward with, say, please include your plan in dealing with, you know, your feedstuffs and such within that.
So when I draft the,
What he
Yeah.
said would be really good,
yeah.
because, yeah.
So we have subdivision plans, like what is your plan for the subdivision? Let's rephrase that to what is your plan for any forage
Yeah,
produced by this property? Or something that sounds good.
yeah.
And then we could say, well, you know, we are not going to approve you selling this product until blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And if we,
Okay, I'll take it here. One thought is, so the planning board is updating their the subdivision regs, so are they gonna put in what you need them to put in? as far
So
as compliance with the
we
weed plan?
separated my subdivision management plan from the planning board's plan, so it's an appendix now,
Okay,
so that the board and the commission can update that plan as needed
Okay.
without
the
The-
planning board,
the planning board.
okay.
Yes.
so it'd be good to do that with this too.
So,
Just because if we need to update this, put it in an appendix.
so they have not had this part of their, planning board hasn't had this as part of their documentation. They have only had subdivision management plan. So, when we update this, then we'll include it in our new, when we redo the county plan, this will come in that.
Okay.
Okay,
Is that,
you got it.
all right?
So yeah, just get hold of me if you need.
Okay.
I'll
Thanks,
make
Mark.
sure. Still think you're making huge progress, so.
See you tomorrow.
You can keep this straight, that's impressive.
Okay,
And then, Word, because you know about this, if, say they wanted to sell wheat, could they test it well enough to say there's no noxious weeds in it and still be able to sell it?
Well, commercial sale of wheat requires a seed analysis. So that falls under the U.S. Noxious Weed Seed Act. That's a Federal Seeds Act. And then the noxious weeds are determined on a state level.
Yeah, so they can test well enough for it,
Yes.
that we can say, okay, you can still probably sell your wheat,
Mhm.
or.
what,
Sure.
what
Yeah.
commercial crops aren't testable?
Yeah, they're,
So, I mean, can they test, like, I don't know, do we grow a lot of millet, or those small seeded things, is that where we can?
Well, no. Everything that is legal for sale, whether they're native plants or anything, has to. I guess unless it's less than $100 or whatever it is,
Okay.
must have a seed analysis option to provide for
Okay.
sale, and that falls under the Federal Seeds Act, and labeling act under the Montana State Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
It's actually, I was part of the Montana Seed Trade Association. We just went through some labeling discussions on what can and cannot be sold under variety name even, so with
Okay.
recommendations to the Department of Agriculture. So
Okay.
So we
Yeah.
could,
unfortunately, I've known a little bit too much about that kind of stuff.
so we could say we could actually do,
So the only crop that would be a real thing would be hay products and
a straw.
straw products.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
sure.
we could take, that's where I'll,
Yeah.
we could say, okay, you can still sell your wheat seed or.
Well, if it's under the commodity grade, they clean it anyway, but that's, you know, I'm dealing specifically with seed production, you know, going through certification.
Yeah.
But if it's a commodity grade, you know, everything's cleaned anyway, and there's all kinds of jointed goat grass, for example, and wheat provided in Montana, and the elevators clean that up.
So they
Yeah.
can clean that
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So we could remove, saying you can't sell that, they could sell that though.
Mhm. It'd just be the,
It'd be the straw.
They can, it's, you know, it's
Yeah.
into the commodity hard red spring market or whatever, yeah,
Yeah.
or, yeah. So,
I mean, just to clarify that,
Mhm.
so. And, you know,
are you in charge of the certified noxious hay certification program?
mostly Allison.
Okay,
I back Allison up, like last summer, I did a number of her inspections when she was feeling a little bit overwhelmed with pregnancy.
Okay.
yeah.
Um,
Okay.
But yeah, so I'm a backup inspector.
Yeah.
okay. All right.
And Allison doesn't get too many calls on that, really. She gets a few, but.
Yeah, she has her repeats and that's,
Okay.
I don't know what'll happen if they change and start doing some other stuff with that bill that they're looking to pass. You know, if they're gonna start certifying seed through the Department of Ag. Because that's a whole thing. So I don't know if that'll change.
If it does, she'll be calling you.
Yeah.
They already are, I mean,
Well, no,
it's,
there's a bill in place to increase the noxious weed seed-free forages, what else they can certify, basically.
okay,
I don't know all of the language, and I don't know if it'll pass, but they're trying to make more things certifiable.
okay.
So you can certify more things as weed seed-free.
Yeah.
Because I have to provide certified seed tests for Forest Service
Mhm.
bids. They need blue tag or select tags or something like that for approval prior to blending. And the same as the Department of Transportation.
So they're looking, some of the key ones was soil, I don't know how to get that, gravel, compost and mulch, if it wasn't, I don't know all the specifics, so. But they were kind of targeting those,
Oh, I know about the gravel, okay,
so,
okay.
but I don't know how that, I don't know if
Alright.
that'll shake out yet.
That's,
So,
which is a big deal because spotted knapweed loves gravel pits.
oh, yeah.
And I'm certain that
And so
there's a
that's
lot of issues
Our
with.
next
Yeah.
form to go do.
Okay,
That one though, we'll have a template from the last time,
Yeah.
and we can,
okay,
that one will be it.
And my suggestion would be to make it gravel pit, open site, telephone, make it a form that covers any ground disturbances that will leave bare ground.
okay.
So,
Railroad
yep,
to gold mine.
exactly. So when we go to do that form, that'll be my suggestion, is we're not limiting it just to gravel pits.
Okay.
So that we can cover more things.
So, okay. Where are we?
So we have the cover letter, what we're gonna send out with that, how second form we're gonna use, sort of the language we are gonna use to make it friendlier. Basically, we seem to like flatheads.
Yeah.
So do we wanna keep the part with 20 acres or less, comply with complete control, owning more than 20 acres, that language? You like that? Or you control a buffer and then you split the property into thirds.
I guess, I understand where the cutoffs are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering if, from what I remember with Flathead County, it's pretty open.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Do we want to make them bigger or smaller?
So, I can't remember the exact numbers, but when Allison and I were working on that application a couple years ago, 40% of parcels in Broadwater County are 40 acres or less of private parcels. It's a really large number, is small acre lots.
So do we want to make, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Do we want to make the 20, 40? It's 40 acres, and
I mean, it's a day's worth of work to spray.
yeah. And to keep clean. On your travels through the county, how many of that size parcels are in non-compliance? 10%, 1%?
It's hard to say because we don't know what they're doing. So, I mean, if they're spraying some of it, but I would say 30%. I would say 30% of them. I think we have a lot of absentee landowners in that 1 to 40 range.
Yeah, and that's where I was
And
headed.
so I think it's higher than we think.
Okay. So do we want to make it bigger, is where I'm saying. We might put more people in non-compliance, but might be that kind of over the fence, hey, we're watching you kind of thing, and you gotta do something. You know, you get 3 guys with 40 acres doing something, you can get some chunk done.
I'm okay with upping it. For your guys'. And that puts a little more burden for complete control. 40 acres is achievable. You know, it's not an unreachable goal to expect complete control of 40 acres. Right? That's my thought on it. Nathan? You're sure gonna go there?
Yeah, right, because I mean, that's where I'm asking this question and I'm throwing up. Just, I got 40 acres and it's like this, and I know there's stuff up there that I can't spray. I can't,
Yes.
You know.
But so then,
But if I'm going under that 40 acre thing, well, I got to keep it clean. But on the other hand, we get 120 acres clean. Sure looks a whole lot better than 20 acres at Preston.
mhm.
I mean, and that's where I'm saying if we up it, we'll get more and more clean. Keep it clean, get more clean, kind of snowballs.
And so as they put in, so we put a 40 acre land in non-compliance. They come in and say, well, you know, here's my land that I can spray, here's my land I can't.
Yeah.
So then we say, okay, we're gonna spray this and we'll release biologicals there. Or let's hook you up with a drone operator, or one of those options. You know, there's,
I'm kind of saying let's up it.
okay,
How does, then you kind of know,
yeah,
most people are at 40 acres.
40 acres or under.
Want to stick on that if you're 40 acres and under? I mean, you get to kind of throw everybody else in the next group. So if we do that, we better up the $400.
Yes, I would make those numbers reflect that.
Yeah. You only have $400.
I guess additional wording I can think of is there's other biologicals other than insects as well, as Corey mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no,
So-
and so,
Yeah.
and so when,
And let's and this is kind of my, well, we're in the R part of it, aren't we?
yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay, never mind.
One of the things that the plan would provide them with is if, are you guys going to do mechanical controls? Are you going to do biologicals? Are you going to do grazing management? So those options are outlined in the weed management plan, so they can tell us what they're going to do.
Okay.
So if they decide that they're going to, graze this chunk here and mow this chunk, they can outline that in the plan.
Okay.
So those are accounted for, those other control mechanisms.
So they will tell us what
Yes.
they're, okay.
And so if we think that that's not appropriate, then we can suggest that.
Okay. Good.
Or if we think something would be appropriate there, if they have a huge marshy area, we can say, hey, rather than putting tort on there, we really need you to look at this.
And then, one thing I didn't notice in any of these, I was skimming it, so I'll be the first to admit that. There was no reinspection, was there?
So what they call for, what I think we should write it is, that they're under this non-compliance management plan for 3 years, they need to submit us a documentation of their control, and we can reinspect annually, if we want,
Is that not?
I would say or as needed.
or as needed.
Or
There,
Okay.
that, I like that better.
annually or as needed. I mean, you don't want to,
You don't wanna do it every week, but
and you don't want to prohibit yourself from
Yeah.
more frequently than
unless, yeah, I like that not.
Yeah.
Because
or as determined necessary or
Or
whatever.
however
I
you
mean,
wanna put it, but we can
Mhm.
go there whenever the hell we want.
So the only thing we have to be careful of is to make sure we have ability to access our land.
Well,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
that's,
so yes.
that's in there too, but I mean, not, yeah, if the gate's shut, yeah, okay,
Mhm.
we can come back another day, but I wanna see, I wanna be able, I want you to be able to go, make sure they're following it, doing it. That-
Show me your progress.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I can, yeah, their progress is progress.
So where is the best place for that line to be? So the management plan will be followed for 3 years, blah, blah, blah. Do we lay that out in this compliance plan and strategy? Because there's not a good place to put it on these letters that I think would make sense.
I don't think they need to know that with the letters.
So I think we should put it in this, what we include in our county management plan.
Mhm.
For noncompliance, it'll be 3 years, site inspection as needed with proof of treatments every year.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, 'cause that's how our subdivision plans are.
Yep.
You know, if we have to do the inspection,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
so yeah.
And the code requires as well that as actions are performed
Mhm.
that we're notified
Yes.
and so.
I really need to reread the code. This is what happens when you do it 3 months ago.
Wait until you're 77.
This-
What were we talking about?
I'm gonna have a video recorder out for you all the time by then.
So, I think that includes most of the things I wanted to cover. So what I'll do is put together everything that we discussed and send you a really lovely email with all of these things for you guys to look over ahead of the meeting so that we can make any changes beforehand. And then, because my goal would be to approve this at the March meeting. So we can read through it, discuss it, but then that would be my goal is approval at the March meeting. Is that reasonable?
I'm okay with that. Send a copy to Corey. I want
Yes.
him to read it too.
Yeah, I will, for sure.
Just make sure.
I don't screw anything up.
Well, not so much that, but just so he. And when
And then
we-
you can flag if we're overstepping or reaching. an
Yeah,
area
have him
that we're
read
out
through
of
it, that
bounds.
way we're, as you said, why not? And then when we, yeah,
And
if he
if it-
sees a problem.
And if we flag something really major, then we'll discuss it at the March meeting, and then we'll have to approve it at the April meeting. But
Yeah.
my goal is to not have that.
Yeah, and even if he can, I don't know if that's possible. You could actually send him the first copy,
Okay,
and then send it to us after, if he says, yeah, it looks good, send it to us. If
Okay.
you need to change this,
And then it doesn't get you 2 copies with minor changes, it gets you,
one copy with what it needs to be.
Okay.
You guys okay with that? And
He'll
I really
need
like
to
what
approve it a
you're
second time, though.
doing.
If we want to make changes, he'll need to approve it after, but it's
Yeah.
only one person that has to look at that. Okay.
Is that really like?
I think as long as we can do that, our March meeting's not very far away.
it's 2 weeks
so
away, so
As
my
long
goal
as we can.
is to have everything to you by
keep it
Monday.
time.
Well, you're over.
Have everything to them or to Corey?
Well, I guess let's rephrase it, I'll have it to Corey by Monday, and then Corey can review it, and then it'll come out to you.
Yeah,
for
because it won't need any kind of public comment or anything on it.
Well, it'll be on the agenda, so public who wants to comment it can come to the March 10th meeting.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I just know how busy Corey is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Streaming.
so my goal is to get it to him as soon as possible, and then,
And then, I'm just looking at the calendar, if you get it to him Monday, which is March 1st, hopefully he can get it back to you by next Thursday,
Yeah.
Friday. I guess you've got a few days. And I would suggest you put that in your email to Corey,
Yeah.
kind of your plan. 'Cause
and
he
then
is
what I can also
incredibly busy.
break out is like the letters. I'd be like, hey, this is just form
Yeah.
from previous, no changes. This is what I really like you to take your time on.
He's just
Yeah.
incredibly busy until the new deputy.
Yeah, so then we can highlight what's of most importance to review. Break it down that way.
Yeah, there's no point in having him look at the letters, really.
Yeah. And he doesn't need to look at the management plan. He really needs to look at this document that we're gonna include in the county's plan.
Yeah, just make sure we're not doing something we shouldn't.
All right, anything else?
Oh, I don't have anything. Well, my mind's slipping, mine too. Ready?
Thank you for your work on this and putting all the options together for a site review.
Trying to keep it not too many.
Yeah. Oh, that's-
We need 52 counties.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of counties out there that have ours though too. You know, just
Yeah.
the law.
Mhm.
This is what you get. Yeah. I'll attest, that is not one.
No.
No.
Because I think in all the county, since the weed board was started, I think non-compliance was tried 3 times and nothing ever happened. We just could not get it ever to work.
And the Department of Ag is making it, having a strong non-compliance policy, a stronger component of all the county management plans. We're looking to see counties have a plan in place that they're able to implement if they need to. So,
Are we off the air?
No,
Okay.
so you can adjourn us, I
I'm
think.
waiting for you.
Do we have to adjourn?
You also call it to order.
We need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
No,
I'll make the motion.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, I need a motion, I make the motion.
Yeah.
Got it.
Need a motion.
Okay. I'll second.
Perfect. All right.
We're good. Meeting conducted. That was even a meeting. It was a working meeting, so it wasn't.
Jessica, if you guys want, you will do this on March 10th, right?
Yes.
Six.
And
Ten.